Hello, Colts Nation. What's up, No Horsing family? Welcome back to another episode of the No Horsing Around podcast. As always, I am one of two dudes talking Colts. I am one of your hosts, Stephen Burton, and we're going to try something different today, you guys. Obviously, everyone's making the rounds on all the national television shows, all the national podcasts. Zak Keefer has, Stephen Holder has, James Boyd, a lot of different people have. And I kind of want to do a little bit of a reaction to what's being said about the Indianapolis Colts and kind of this cluster that has been the last 24 to 48 hours, really the last couple of weeks, that our beloved Indianapolis Colts have kind of become. So I'm going to kind of play. Zak Keefer was on with Rich Eisen recently. I'm going to kind of play his reaction to what's gone down over the last couple of weeks, specifically the last couple of hours, the last couple of days. So let's kind of jump into this. I'm going to play it for you guys, and then we're going to kind of react to it at the same time. And I want to get your guys' reactions to it. So give me just 1 second. We're going to pop this thing up, and I'm going to let you guys hear what he has to say.
In your article about last night's press conference, and you're going through what's happened in the last several weeks with the Indianapolis Colts, Zak Keefer, you called the Ryan benching, quote unquote, universally unpopular in the locker room. So that was who ordered the code red? That was Jim Irsay who ordered the code red on Matt Ryan?
Yeah, that was his move.
Okay.
And whether the players say it publicly or not, they were not in favor of that.
So if that's the case, then seeing Sam Ehlinger on the field against Belichick's defense and just, and I know Irsay spoke last night about history in this century in football and how the Colts are the fourth winningest franchise. If you want to talk history since 2000, Belichick eats quarterbacks like Ehlinger, like a feral prey, right? Like we see animal documentaries that would be the proper analogy of what Belichick does to quarterbacks like that. So why is Frank Reich the fall guy for that after a game like Sunday? Can you help connect those dots for me?
Yeah, that's what I don't like. That's what I have a little bit of hard time understanding, because if the rug was pulled out from under you as a head coach in terms of you don't even get to pick the quarterback. Now, we're not talking just one quarterback here. I would play Nick Foles before I play Sam Ehlinger, but they're not doing that either. As a directive from the owner, they want to play the kid, Sam Ehlinger, and see what he's got. And you pull the rug out from Frank Reich 2 games in. Now, Frank Reich, he's guilty here too. The offense is terrible. It's his offense. He wasn't getting it done. That's absolutely part of this story, but it just feels like this is an impossible situation for anybody to walk into and have success, because everything goes back to the offensive line falling apart. But if you're telling the coach who to play and who not to play, and then you're firing him for losing with the guy you want him to play, this is meddling. And this is what Jim Irsay has fought for 25 years as an owner. He didn't want to be his father. For those who remember, Bob Irsay was insane. He would run down on the field at halftime and tell the coach to bench the quarterback, and he would fire the coach and forget about it an hour later. And I could go on and on, but Jim Irsay has been very deliberate. He wasn't going to be that owner, but in the last 12 months, he stepped into these decisions and he's made his voice heard. And Frank Reich is out, Marcus Brady is out, and Chris Ballard was sitting there last night, sort of like, we had some passionate discussions. I certainly don't believe this was Chris Ballard's choice to go to an unproven coach to try and save a season that's going nowhere.
Of course, since he knows for sure there's nobody on the staff that's called a single NFL offensive play before. Nobody. And you're making this move in the middle of a week. That building must be sleepwalking right now, not wondering, not knowing what's going on, what the schedule is, how things are going to change, who's calling plays, what's going on at all. And you've got to play a game against Las Vegas. And of all people, the guy who turned down the job. Right. You want to talk about football gods winking at you. So, of course, Chris Ballard wouldn't make a decision like this. And that's why I'm still wondering why Irsay did. Did he sit there and think that Reich was coaching scared and going to analytics too much in New England, and that the kid wasn't being supported because he was purposely trying to tank because he was against Ryan being benched? Is that that's the only sort of stuff I would, as you're speculating, because again, As you know, a conspiracy theory always fills the vacuum. So I can't. I have no idea. I'm really grasping. Talking.
Yeah, and so are people within the building. People that go to this Colts practice facility every day to work. And some of them are livid, some of them are embarrassed, and some of them are just completely in disbelief. And, one of the most poignant moments last night during this 35-minute bizarro press conference was I asked Jeff Saturday, like, what in the world are you doing here, for lack of a better phrase? And he said, look, man, like, I got a call Sunday night, and I was shocked was an understatement. Saturday's response when Jim Irsay brought this up to him was, honestly, can you tell me why you're calling me for this job right now? I mean, right? Like, with all due respect to Jeff Saturday, great player. This is not how this happens in the NFL. And hey, extra credit for thinking outside the box, but this is going to be a long couple of months in Indianapolis.
So let's just try and what's the silver lining? Look for it for me and for Colts fans who might be hearing this, slapping their heads with their open palm. Is there one? You got one here?
They have the worst offensive line in football. Maybe he fixes it. What's happened to Quentin Nelson? What's happened to Ryan Kelly? What's happened to Braden Smith? They allowed 9 sacks on Sunday. 9. That's just horrendous. And they had, I think, 2 net yards in the first quarter. I mean, maybe he gives them some juice. Maybe he fixes the offensive line. And maybe he stays on. They tried to hire him before as an offensive line coach. It didn't happen. But I think this is a test run for Jeff Saturday as well. I think he wants to find out if he wants to be a full-time coach, if he wants to be a head coach or position coach or something. This is a heck of a way to do it, right? Just get thrown in the fire on November 8th and have a game in Las Vegas in 5 days.
And what about Jonathan Taylor? What can you tell me, Zach, about him and his health?
Do we see him again this season?
Really?
I don't know.
Come on, really? They just put him away? That's the problem, too, is that, the 3 wins that they have already are too many. How about that? Frank Reich won too many times at this point in time.
Yeah, Matt Ryan won too many fourth-quarter comebacks for him. They're not in the top 5 right now, and I think that's the only silver lining at the end of this season. The end of this disaster that has been this season is they need to find a way. They need to find a way into the top 5 or 6 or 7 of the draft, and they need to find a good quarterback. That could be the only payoff from this crazy couple of months that we've had in Indianapolis. I mean, are they really going to – it's hard to see the Colts competing in so many of these games down the stretch because of their offense and because so many holes they have to fill right now. And this is a mess of their own making. That's really how I would sum it up.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.
Okay, guys. So that's it right there. That is the most recent interview that we've seen anybody do in regards to what's kind of gone on. Zak Keefer's kind of done the rounds. What do we think of what he just said, right? We've talked, we're going to talk again on Family Time, obviously, tomorrow, but we've talked a little bit about what it means with Jeff Saturday, what we think, what we feel. It's really interesting to hear him talk about the guys in the building and how they feel and how they view it as just shocked. I mean, I think everyone was expecting Bubba Ventrone and then boom, Jeff Saturday, right? I think that one of the most interesting parts to me, and it's a part that I would like to just touch on, is the part where he discusses that even Jeff Saturday was like, "Why are you calling me?" I feel like that's a misquote, right? That he's being misquoted. Jeff Saturday is in that for anybody who's interviewed for any jobs, and I'm not defending this hire. I'm not saying anything when I don't know. I have no clue what they're thinking. But as far as that, anybody who's been interviewed, that's a question a lot of times that you ask. Hey, why do you want me here? Especially if it's a highly sought after position, what do you look at from me? And I think that's more of what Jeff Saturday was saying. It was like, not like, oh, why me? It was more like, tell me why I should come there to do this. Tell me why you want me over somebody else. And then obviously Jeff goes on later in the press conference to talk about how he felt called for this. He felt that he's interviewing for the job, the potential for more than just the final 8 games, that he's potentially interviewing for other people, right? But guys, this is the national perspective on the Colts right now. It is buffoonery. It is a circus. People think that Jim Irsay is off his rocker. I mean, for those who watched the press conference last night, like I did, you're talking about making sausage and talking about Peyton and talking about all these and comparing Chris Ballard to Michael Jordan and all these things. I mean, it's weird. But I think everyone has to sit back and kind of think, because I think what Zak Keefer said at the end of it is the most important thing. It's win-win, I think, because and we'll get way more into this, but I think he said it too, is that if it bottoms out, you get hopefully a top 5 pick and you go get your quarterback. If he fixes things, then you found your coach, maybe, and you figure out where you're going. I'm not saying any of that's too early. You've got 2 months left in the season to say this, but this is the national perspective, you guys. This is what a highly respected writer, journalist for The Athletic who covers the Colts, this is what he's hearing, right? And I know there are people who say, well, it's Zak Keefer. Zak Keefer's been on the show before. Zak Keefer's amazing. This is what he's hearing. And it's not just him. We've heard Pat McAfee talk about it. We've heard Stephen Holder talk about it. James Boyd talk about it. Dan Dockich talk about it. Kevin Bowen talk about it. Jake Query talk about it. We've heard a lot of people say this is a really, really bad look. We'll see what happens, but I want to get your guys' perspective. What do you think of all these interviews that these guys are doing? And what do you think of what the national perspective is of what the Colts did over the last 24, 48 hours? That's not even covering the new play caller, right? That's not even covering him that we just announced. So, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see. I think Sunday can't get here soon enough to figure out what the hell's going to happen. But let me know. Drop it in the comments. Let me hear from you guys. Let me hear what you guys think of what the perspective is nationally about our beloved Indianapolis Colts, our beleaguered owner in Jim Irsay, and our new interim. Let's key that in. Interim head coach, Coach Saturday. In the end, I'm always going to love the Colts, but I love you. Zach loves you. I'm out.